Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to NerdTube. And we're talking Star Trek Strange New Worlds as well as the Orville. I'm here with my new guest today and special guest, I may add, in V-Man, also known as Advanced Mages. How you doing?
No, not bad, man. I'm doing pretty good, especially after
And you're
this week of
looking,
television. I mean, we had great television this week, man. I mean, it was all up. It's great.
yeah, a massive smorgasbord of television. It's a shame that Strange New Worlds has come to an end. So for that reason alone, we like to talk about it first here on this channel. But I feel like we deserve to give that episode the big finale by talking about it last. So in this particular occasion, we'll be talking about Orville first. But nevertheless, I can't get enough of both of these shows. Here at NerdTube, by the way, we do talk about other shows as well, which are like Star Wars related and Marvel related, which are on Disney Plus. But for me, because in the UK Orville's on Disney Plus, for me this is without doubt the best show on Disney Plus. Nothing comes close to this. All the other stuff that they're bringing out, with their cookie cutter, vanilla, bubblegummy sort of shows, which are made, strictly made for a family audience. This is the most thought-provoking stuff they're bringing out, and I can't get enough of it. I saw your post on Facebook mentioning, how Orville brought you to tears,
Oh yeah.
and so I was already getting myself ready, and I didn't. After what Orville did last week with the episode regarding transitioning and stuff like
Yeah,
that,
with Utopus, yeah.
yep, which which was absolutely fantastic, and it's amazing how a lot of the episodes to do with Orville are recently hitting home with current day events as well. So to see an episode which not necessarily, time travel episodes don't necessarily, not necessarily on this particular occasion, don't necessarily mix with current day events, but you can appreciate the emotional impact of this particular episode. There was no good guys in this episode, so to speak. There was no easy decisions to be made in this episode, and the people who you tend to rely on to do the right thing almost felt like they weren't doing the right thing in this particular episode. Before we start talking about it, and by the way, people are very happy to see you. Starting off with Daniel Vance, he says greeting and salutations, and he's also saying, "I think I'm starting to understand Kalon because I swear I saw Isaac's eye fracking Malloy during the opening guitar solo." I'm not sure if you know what he means by that, but fair enough. And Jim Landscape, Commodore Boone himself, is happy to see you too.
What's up, man?
But before we start talking about this episode into little bits and pieces, V-Man, what did you think of today's episode of The Orville?
Well, the thing is, like, of course, going into both these episodes, I knew they were going to be, time travel episodes, and it's always kind of good when you can kind of see the parallels between both the shows, especially on the same given week, and still appreciate both shows, and love them both. I've actually watched both episodes twice, because I love them both equally, but this episode of Orville, it's funny because the Orville started off being this, waka waka waka, type stuff in the first season, and then in the second season, by the time you get to where the Kalons attack, that's kind of their best of both worlds moment, where it's like, man, shit kind of hit the fan, and by the time this season started, like, things were pretty serious. There weren't a lot of jokes, but the series has definitely matured. And I really teared up when you had Malloy with his family, and he's pointing the phaser at Commander Grayson, Captain Mercer, and that one, the security
I can
lady.
never remember her name. That's the only one I keep forgetting now.
Yeah.
I'm pissed if I forget her name.
but like, as a father, it's like I'd fight like hell for my family, and all I could see was Royce and Mona in that moment, and like that's the part where I teared up, because it's like, here's this dude who's, he stayed 3 years, and he's only been with his family for 7 years, and it's like for Royce is only 5, and like I'd fight like hell for my kid, and I know exactly how he feels in that moment, and that's when it's a sign of a good show, is when you can put yourself in that character's mindset, and what do you do? It's like, technically I know what they would do in the Star Trek universe, like they'd kind of look the other way, but it's like Kelly and Ed, they're like, no, dude, you broke the law. And he brings up a good point where he's like, I was killing animals, where in our century that's illegal. It's like, oh shit, that's illegal. Like, that's not even illegal in the Star Trek universe. So it's like, again, they're all bringing up points where we've never even thought of these things. So it's one of those things where it really makes you think of time travel in a far legal sense and in a far stricter sense than Star Trek does. But again, when it all boils down to the heart of that scene, it's a father trying to protect his family, and I have to put myself there, and that's where I think Orville has really worked. It may not be the waka waka waka, but it's definitely got the heart, and I can't say that I don't like it. I love it. Like, this was a great episode, and then to hear the other Malloy say, no, you guys did the right thing, that's still just as heartbreaking, because it's looking at it from two different perspectives, but it's like there is no right or wrong answer. But again, they bring up a valid point where it's kind of like the Back to the Future Part 2, when Doc Brown is explaining time travel to Marty, where it's like, look, time travel is going like this, but then you skew off and go here and you continue. And that, I'd like to believe that Malloy and his family didn't get erased, that it was just a different, universe that continued to exist or whatnot, So I'd like to think that they're still out there.
I noticed that too, by the way, that you saw him split into, but I thought it was going down that route. Like, okay, we've got different versions of Malloys here in different maybe timelines or something along those lines. That's how I was thinking of it. So yeah. Just to go to some of the comments here. I'm not sure if I mentioned from Jim earlier. He said, "How are you?" But Cousin Cheetah is also saying it's a double timey-wimey episode, timey-wimey episodes.
Timey-wimey.
Yeah, for sure. The old holodeck episode of Malloy and his wife singing hits even harder now. Yeah,
it is. And he sings it so well. He's got a great voice.
Yeah, it's funny in a way. Like, God, Bortus, he has like they have the whole cargo bay area open for him to do his singing, and whilst Malloy has it in this little rec room. Yeah, I just noticed that. I'm surprised they just don't do it in the holodeck. Anyways, Josh Irwin says the interesting part was that 2015 Malloy sided with Ed and Kelly, knowing that he would have sought the girl out, I think he meant to say. Yeah. And he wasn't obviously infatuated with her in the previous season. I can't remember if it was season 1 or season 2. One thing I like about the Malloy character is that we get serious episodes of him when it comes to personal issues. Like issues of the heart, being in love, stuff like that. That's where it's kind of serious with him. Everything else is just an adventure. Evil Malloy. Yeah, I'm sure there is an evil. He might be evil from the moment he didn't get his egg sandwich. Gone.
It reminds me of if you remember in that one episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, season 7, where Worf is going to all these different timelines, and at the end of the episode, the main Worf is flying toward the anomaly, and there's this Enterprise that fires on the shuttlecraft, and they hail the Enterprise. That Enterprise is firing, and it's this Riker that's all scraggly looking, and he's like, "We won't go back. You don't know what it's like in our universe. The Federation's gone, the Borg is everywhere." And that's what this Malloy reminded me of when he picks up that, when he pulls out that phaser, and he aims it. Like, that's that moment for this Malloy. He's at his wit's end. He's about to lose his family. He knows them going back theoretically, because of course none of us really actually know. But for him, it's over. as soon as they leave, he's erased. Like everything's gone. And when his kid, like nothing sucks worse. And I think that's what got me choked up was to when his kid said, asks him, "Are we in trouble?" Or knowing that you've got to lie to your kid. That fuck, dude. that was so fucked up. The writing was really good for that, but I feel like for Malloy, that was that for like that Riker where he's like, we won't go back. Like there was desperation in that Riker's voice, something we were not used to seeing for Riker, and that's what I feel for Malloy. A very happy character, very happy-go-lucky. Even when he said earlier in the season where he kind of didn't trust Isaac, where he was like, yeah, I kind of agree with you, when he was talking to that new kind of big-eyed hot chick that came on. I forget what her name is.
Charlie?
Yes, her. Even when he was talking to her, saying, yeah, you know what, I kind of agree with you. There was no malice there. There was no desperation. It was still kind of him. But here, we've never seen this side of Malloy where he's acting in desperation and then to lie to your kid. But I feel like that was that moment for this character. And then to see, it was heartbreaking to see Malloy again kind of be like, you guys were right. Like,
Yeah, what was I thinking?
yeah.
Yeah, just have you ever seen the new Mortal Kombat games?
No.
No, just like because the story is up to like Mortal Kombat 12 or whatever, like the stories of these characters, they kind of become kind of like the good guys have become kind of grey and almost evil to a degree. And then we have a time travel scenario where they meet their younger selves, and the younger selves have seen what their future selves have become, and they can't believe that they've ended up being like that. And it kind of reminded me of stuff like that. And also regarding what happened to Malloy near the end of the episode, like once he realized that they're going to go back in time to see his younger self, like how do you prepare for what's going to happen to you after that? When you're just sitting with your wife and your kids, and like when does that moment happen that things are changing? It's like it's weird, but it's to do with time, but you're waiting for it in the current time.
It's almost like back in the day when people would just kind of go to sleep and be like, let's just wait for the bombs to fall. Like you go to sleep and almost wait to not wake up. And it's kind of like this, like you're waiting to fade because you're going to be erased. Like there's like you don't know, and that's again, it's that heartbreak of like it's just there's so much about the morality, and again, like it paints Ed and
Kelly.
in such a light. But I mean, again, like that, they bring up good points. Like that's why you don't do this. But again, he has the same points. Like 3 years, he avoided anybody, and from his perspective, killing animals was illegal, like immoral. Like, but he did it. And it drove him nuts. This was a broken man. And again, what was so interesting was with most time travel stories, which although I love time travel stories, most stories are not satisfying. I think the best one for me was Yesterday's Enterprise, the one where they bring back Tasha Yar from The Next Generation. I think that was probably the best one that's done. This one didn't, although it felt like a time travel story, like it was. I enjoyed it for that emotional reason. Most time travel stories don't connect with me on that emotional level, like Yesterday's Enterprise did, where I really felt like, man, the whole universe is coming unraveled, and this had that emotional impact that one did. It was such a good fucking episode. And that's not even talking about the whole Isaac and Charlie situation. That was
we'll
fun.
get to that in a second. I just want to quickly get to some of the comments.
Sure.
Daniel Vaughn says, those who guessed a Galaxy Quest Omega 13 device story, please pick up your winnings at the payout counter, or as we say in the UK, the bookies. Hailing channel open, Joshua. Okay, so we've got people saying hello to each other. That's always nice. Nice little good community going on here. Joshua Irwin says, last time they both did body snatching aliens, this time they both did time travel. Yeah, they did. I agree. And we have a high Jim as well as Joshua Owen also saying he also didn't ask to be sent back in time, which I do agree. But yeah. Before we're talking about Charlie and Isaac, their 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 subplot, which happened in the course of this episode, kind of reminded me of the subplots from Star Trek 4, where they had to, refuel the dilithium crystals, so to speak, because they drained them when it came to obviously time traveling. So they had to find the nuclear vessels to get the power and recharge the crystals. In this particular case, they had to do some mining and find some MacGuffin of sorts that would recharge their power. And it was interesting to see all of that. I mean, that's what some of the more comical stuff. And there was, like, the comedy is very subtle now. I mean, it's just a little dollop here, a little dollop there. I mean, it's not really like running gags necessarily. And some of the comedy we do see, obviously of Isaac having an arm wrestling contest with those bikers. I mean, you could tell they didn't belong the moment they walked in there. And I found that very amusing. And you got Isaac walking like this. I mean, it's the body
when
language
Isaac,
is fantastic.
I mean, try not to laugh when he's like, "Oh, you are, oh, I am losing," or whatever he says during the arm. Like, I mean, it's stuff like that where it's like, it's not as boom, boom, boom as the first season was with its comedy, but like when they do tell a joke, like the jokes always land, and again, it's a little bit more matured in the humor that they do, and I don't mind it because again, it feels a lot more. I wouldn't say Star Trek, but I'd say sci-fi. Um, and I feel like it's found its footing. And again, if you liked the earlier seasons, hey, that's fine. There's looking at Star Trek. Let's take the Next Generation for instance. The first season's completely different from the way the seventh season feels. Or DS9 is
Yeah,
a
a
better
million miles.
example.
Yeah,
Yeah,
by a million
DS9.
miles.
Yeah. But and I'd say Orville's probably the same way. Second season feels completely different from the way the fifth season feels. Um, so I have no problem with a show that evolves as it goes along, especially with bringing in new characters and changing stuff around. It keeps things interesting. A show that feels the same constantly, it's going to feel stagnant, so I have no problem with that. But I do feel like seeing Isaac, the same mannerisms with the actor. I was wondering though when that skin, uh, the Isaac template would kind of come in because we had it on the holodeck, or I'm sorry, the simulator. That one time, and I was like, man, if how are they going to get that in the real world? Because that would be very interesting. And then they finally had that here with those.
It's like a holler emitter, isn't it?
Yeah, with the krill, thing that Malloy and Ed had, that one episode in the first season, so they were able to call back to that, and I plumb forgot about that, but it was nice to see that. It was nice to see that back because I think that guy's a talented. he's very talented, but
A lot of these
just
guys who are covering makeup and prosthetics, they're very talented. You
yeah.
know, um, so it was the same actor in the episode where Dr. Finn was trying to have a relationship with Isaac, and he turned human on the simulator. Is that correct? Is it the same actor?
Yep.
Fair enough. Yeah, is he doing like an Anthony Daniels where he's also under the suit as well? So he's in the suit and he's voicing it at the same time.
Yeah.
That's just absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I'm wondering if Charlie will ever warm up to him because she's still very cold to him. Everyone else has kind of forgiven Isaac, so to speak, but it feels like Charlie's still holding a grudge, and we did find out why because her her friend and possibly would be girlfriend was killed by the Kalon, and obviously she blames Isaac for that. So she still holds a grudge, but she is professional. She did save Isaac's life back in the season premiere. So there is maybe something there, and who knows? Maybe we'll get an episode where they're both stuck on a desert planet or something, and they have to learn to get together. I mean, please, I hope they don't fucking do that. But I feel like sometimes that's one of the best ways to resolve some of the situations. Before we continue talking about this episode, let's just get back to some of the comments here. So also sorry, let's start with this one. Oh, so we did do that one earlier. Daniel wanted the arm wrestler was Donald Gibb or from yeah. I see. If that is the same dude, he is aged superbly. Yeah, because that's fucking 40 years ago almost. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's the same guy who was in Bloodsport as well. You know, he's been in a few films. And I was thinking to myself, he does look like that dude, but he looks too young to be that dude. You know, but the guy should be like a pensioner right now. And then for some reason he's laughing out loud saying Star Trek Orville. Joshua says, I thought the funniest part was the selfie with Bortus. yes. I want to get to some of that as well.
Smile, dude. That smile.
Yeah, Bortus is awesome. Bortus is fucking brilliant. I thought the camouflage tech used by Isaac is Shield tech. Shield, or is he talking Marvel here? Anyway, you know, earlier on in this episode, when they had this sort of device, like, how did that come to being? Did Lamar create it? Like this, but I kind of got lost. Like 1 minute, like they have this time travel device, and I don't know if Lamar created it or did they find it on a Kalon ship or whatever. Can you explain that to me?
What was that? One more time?
The device, you know, which the time travel device itself, which was in engineering.
I don't know. It seemed like the device was something. I don't know. It just seemed like it came up out like they hadn't been talking about it. It just seemed like all of a sudden, boom, we got this new stuff that we've been working on, and you know, I don't know. Like it just came up out of a sudden, you know, all of a sudden. That is one thing about this whole season. It has kind of seemed off about some of the stuff. I don't know. Like it was never brought up. It would have been one thing like if they had talked about, you know, maybe planted some seeds maybe a couple episodes back, like okay, we got this new tech we're working on, and or maybe he, Lamar had, walked away. Hey, I'm going to go work on this one thing, and then all of a sudden here it is, where this is the big reveal. But like it just was kind of dropped in the middle of the episode where it's like, what the fuck is this? And then at the end, the one thing that got me about this, which was even bigger than that, which was kind of a what, was the fleet. The station where they were supposed to drop this mystery thing off was destroyed. The fleet was destroyed. The station's destroyed. But then at the end of the episode, like, we never talk about it. There's no resolution there. It's just kind of this all happy ending of, hey, we're back in the present. Okay, but the Kalon know that you have this technology. So you have the information in your data banks. Why aren't the Kalon coming after you? Like, are we going to ignore that? So
I agree.
I mean, we have this tech. More so than the tech that exists, you have knowledge. I mean, you have it in your data bank. So, I mean, to me, it's just one of those things where it's a great episode, but it shouldn't be a bottle. I mean, it's not a plot device. Something like that should not be a plot device. They should have planted a couple of seeds leading up to it. Not a lot, but again, hints that it's there, and then a better resolution at the end, more than just hey, let's drink it up, guys. There should have at least been a scene where we kind of deal with, hey, we just lost a part of the fleet. How are we going to deal with the Kalon coming? I don't think I don't think that should be in another episode. I think it should have been dealt with here.
Ever since Disney Plus got their grips onto Orville, they've obviously given this show a budget, but it's sometimes I think like an episode like this, where the beginning and the end was just padded out for the sake of it because they've got all this fucking money to do so. It just feels like a waste of time. Like you didn't need some of this like conflict at the beginning. There could have been a much better way of Malloy, a way similar to what happened, with Malloy getting back in time by tampering with the time travel device, and then him being sent back to Earth in 2025. And also at the end of the episode where they have to do basically a round trip to the sun and back, very Star Trek 4, without having this shield bubble thing, which won't, so that they can get around the Einstein theory, so they can actually copy the Einstein theory of light speed or relativity or whatever the fuck it is. And that way, if they just go to the sun and back, they do 400 years, and boom, they're back in their regular time. And it's like they could have, and then
if you skip that altogether, that's like 2-3 minutes that you could have sat and had a conversation with an admiral. You would have saved on budget. You would have, you could have had a conversation with Ted Danson or that one kind of chubby lady, who was there last episode, and just sat with them in your briefing room and said, all right, we lost part of the fleet. Let's restrict this technology. We're erasing your data banks, and it's only going to be hidden away. To me, it's one of those things where, put some tensity there, and then go and have your padded scene with, hey guys, let's drink it up. We haven't done this in a long time. Now we can smile. But to me, it left a little bit unresolved, especially when you came into an episode going, wait, what? It's. And that's a mild critique. Again, I loved the episode. To me, I think it's a 10 out of 10. So if that's my only critique on the episode, I'm okay with that. But
I do feel they want to keep reminding us, Kalon, because I think by the end of the season, the Kalon are going to come back again. But we've already had them as the big bad. I mean, they are the Borg without a doubt of Orville. And we've already had them as the big bad last season, so to speak, with the time travel shenanigans in that particular finale. And now they're still lurking and causing headache and stuff like that. So I feel like they're going to eventually crop up as the end level boss of this season. That's why we're reminded of them all the time.
I'm still not convinced that this timeline is the same timeline as the other one, because I mean, I've said it plenty of times before. I told Josh this, and I think it was Josh. It was either Josh or Drew. I'm not sure. And I know Drew looked at me like I was like, dude, stop, slow down on the internet. But I was looking at those pictures of, if you go back to the first season, the first and second season uniforms, it's like a blue strip or orange strip or red strip, and then they got the little rank pads right there, which are gray, right?
Uh-huh.
But if you look at this one, underneath it, it's now black underneath the rank. It's a distinctly different uniform. It's not a large difference, but it is different. I mean, go look at the first episode as opposed to one of the episodes from here. It's distinctly different.
I agree, but costume changes have always been a part of Star Trek. I know this is not Trek, but
it's different. And if you go back to Charlie's flashback from the battle with the Kalon, it's these modern uniforms. It's not the ones that they had back then. So that got me thinking. I was like, this has got to be a different timeline. It's not the old timeline. Something's changed. And I think when at the season finale, when Kelly went back, I think that fucked up the timeline. And now we're dealing with time travel episodes where shit's veering off. I really think that's going to play into a large part of it. And again, I could be wrong, but this episode, and they distinctly go into saying how when you go back and do shit, it changes stuff. I think when Kelly went back, it veered off into a different timeline. And I think Seth is smart enough to actually lay those things out there in front of us and us watch. And then at the end, he goes, boom, there you go. I could be wrong, but I don't know, man. I mean, again, anyone go out there and look, you'll see the uniform difference. And just from those, I mean, go look. It's right in front of you. And I think he's one of those type of people that does the type of shit that I tell stories like that all the time. And I think he's on that same type of mentality. So I don't know. Go check it out. Let me know.
Just going to quickly go into check out the comments first of all. And we have Cheeto saying Lamar is the GOAT engineer, better than that Scotty who invented transport beaming. Obviously, he might be taking the piss, even if he's not. Your opinion, great. But what I liked about Lamar today is that him and that security officer got it on, and I'm so happy they did. I'm so happy that they did, because they make a great couple. You can see there was always something there between them since I think maybe the previous episode when they when in the simulator, and they were like having that Wild West, drink along, and there's something there, and I'm really happy that's the case. Lamar is like Kirk. He's like a serial shagger. He'll fuck anything on two legs, or he's able to fuck anything on two legs. And every show has a shagger. Like I've always said, like every show has like a superhuman tough guy. Like Spock was like that in TOS. Data was like that in TNG. Um, Odo was like that in DS9. Like there's always someone who's like really strong. But you've also got somebody who's like smooth. Kirk was like that in TOS. Riker was like that in TNG. I would say maybe Bashir was like that in DS9, as close as you can get. And like Lamar is definitely the shagger, without a doubt, in Orville. And I like that. Keep shagging away, Lamar. You're the man. But if he settles down with the security officer, I'll be a bit disappointed. But I'm glad at the same time that they got it going. I mean, when he was shagging that girl with the white spikes, that was hilarious. But those are the little subtle comedy elements now you get with Orville. It's not major comedy anymore. Beaming. Okay. Joshua Irwin says the Aronova device was from the first episode. I don't remember what the Aronova device is.
Oh, that's right. That's when they were
saying.
talking about bananas. That's right. Or yeah, that's right.
Daniel Vance says Admiral Perry, played by Ted Danson, talking about Savick 3. Savick was played by Kirstie Alley. Who stars with Ted Danson in Cheers. It's all connected. All right. And Garrick was the shagger in DS9. You're not wearing his shirt. You're wearing his shirt. You should know that. Was Garrick a shagger in DS9? I don't remember. I mean, he was definitely a very peculiar character, and there was more to him than meets the eye, because he wasn't just a humble tailor, But yeah, okay, fair enough. But yeah. So that was pretty much the episode. I will mark it myself, and the ending itself was just going on to the ending before I mark it. Just knowing that when like the position Ed and Kelly were in, that they were not happy with what Malloy did, but they had very little empathy for what he did as well, because it was so easy for them. And it did make me think as well. Sorry, I'm going on another tangent here. It's like, how did Malloy get this life? Because he was on that planet for 10 years. He's got no fucking money. Like, how do you end up being a pilot, for fuck's sake? I mean, you got no license. I mean, how do you manage to do, like, and how do you get yourself on the system? All of these sort of things, like, how do you become somebody of this time? That always made me wonder, like, how he's able to pull all of that off. Did you wonder that at all yourself, V-Man?
I don't know. I think out of anyone who got trapped back there, I think Malloy was probably the most perfect fit, because he knew the most, and he was probably the most flexible. I don't know. I loved his explanation for the big big brother looking at the little brother. Like I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it was a good fit. For I don't know. I feel like it was a good fit. So.
Yeah, I just wondering. I just thinking, it was okay. You're thrown back in time, and somehow you managed to get yourself some sort of life and have a paycheck and be on the system. I always found that a bit weird. And Malloy does remind me of Tom Paris a little bit as well. There's always somebody in these future episodes, these future shows, who happen to love our timeline. They've got something for our fucking timeline, don't they? So yeah, and in this particular case, Malloy was that person. Just quickly going into the comments again. Cousin Cheetah says Garrick was not a shagger. I never remember them stating he was a shagger.
I don't know.
Oh, sorry. Daniel Vaughn said he was the shagger. Sorry, I mistook you for Cheeto because of that comment. Daniel Vaughn said to apologize. Daniel Vaughn said 8 out of 10, great episode. That's hopefully setting up for 10 out of 10 down the road. I mean, I might give this episode a 10 actually.
Yeah, I was about to bring up what Dr. Bashir for sure. Yeah, there was.
Yeah, Dr. Bashir was the shagger. You know what I mean?
No.
So, but just at the end of the episode, like before before, when Malloy was stating that he was not going to go back, they bring in the muscle, which is a security guard, the security officer. And someone needs to remind me of her name because I'm pissed off of calling her the security officer because she's a great character and I don't want to keep calling her that. But they bring her in and they force Malloy's hand, and then they say to Malloy, "Fine, we won't take you back by force. We'll just go back 10 years and take you back then." I'm thinking to myself, motherfuckers, you shouldn't have put him through all this turmoil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You should have just left him the way he is and let him be oblivious to what was going to happen to him, because it would have been a lot better for him that way than to put him through all of this turmoil by forcing him back when he doesn't want to leave, and then just to tell him, okay, fine, we're going to get you a past version of yourself. He didn't need that. I thought that was a bit of a cuntish move by Ed, don't you think?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you should have just wished him well in peace and hugged it out with him and then left. And it would have still been a dickish move to do. But at least you wouldn't have caused him turmoil. But it's like, it was to see the look on that kid's face and cause in front of his family. There was no need for it. It was just drama. I mean, what happens if Malloy would have shot you guys? I mean, there was a good chance he would have done it. I mean, how do you know he wouldn't have killed you?
No, he mentioned that he had it on stun.
Yeah, but
He wasn't going to. Yeah.
how do you know he would? How do you know? Like, I mean, you show up to my house. I don't know, in a wild state. If you push me far enough, like, man, I don't know. Don't push me. How do you know, like, what crazed Malloy would do? To me, it's like, just hug it out with him and then go back to the ship and be like, we can't allow this. Let's just go back and get him, and then make that decision. Like, don't cause this dude unnecessary strife. To me, I even though it pulled at my heartstrings, I story wise, it suited the story. Real world, I wouldn't have done that. I would have just been like, hey, all right, we wish you well, man. We're going back, and then leave. And then, I wouldn't have done that real world. That's just, damn, you don't do that in front of a man and his family,
Yeah, you traumatized that whole fucking family.
Dude,
You
yeah,
know?
because now especially when the kid looks up, are we in trouble, Dad? Like, dude. And then they're sitting there like, God damn, dude. To me, it not only traumatized that family, it traumatized Ed and Kelly. Because they're sitting there going, the whole situation is messed up. And Josh is right. Like, he didn't ask to go back. And it's just a bad situation all over.
Well, I'll get to Josh in a second when he's got something to ask. But Cheetah's asked, did you guys mention that she slept with Lamar? If you did, I missed it, but I thought that was interesting. Well, we never actually saw them shag. They just end up making out up against the wall. But I'm sure that led to a sexual encounter. That security officer is fucking hot. Anyway, Joshua Irwin also says, I would have never gone back to 2055 or 2015. I would have jumped the entire situation and gone back before the Kalon attack. That way they never went back in time. Before the Kalon attack? Yeah, but are you worried about them bumping into themselves and causing a paradox or some shit like that?
Here's the thing, Josh. You go back to the Kalon attack, but the Kalon, it was always in the Kalon's intention of attacking. We're not important to them. The Kalon are always going to attack. It's kind of like the Borg. The Borg are always on their way. So you can say, oh, we can go back to Wolf 359 and stop them from destroying our starship. Okay, but the Borg are still on their way. And that's the same thing with the Kalon. The Kalon always had it in their mind to attack, because it's just like what Ed said when the Orville was on the planet. He was like, they're stalling. And she's like, so? And because they were like, hey, give us more time. And he's like, it sounds like they're stalling. She's like, so? And he was like, why would a computer stall? Like, why would they need more time? It's yes or no, 1 or 0. Like, why would they need more time? So they had already made it.
I thought of that as well, but funny enough.
Yeah, why? So going back to the attack, like, and from my perspective, going back to the attack wouldn't matter. Go back to the attack. What would one more ship do? go back and warn Earth. Again, what would that do? You're not going to change anything from warning. I mean, a couple more ships isn't going to change the attack. They're still on their way, and they're still going to screw you up. I mean, going back and changing that, and maybe asking the Krill to come, like, if you would have warned Earth and then gone to the Krill to ask, the Krill aren't going to believe you because the Kalan ships aren't there. So now you still got a war on the Krill front. Now you risk losing Earth because you've got all these Earth ships there, but the Earth ships aren't going to stand a chance because the Krill were the thing that prevented the Kalan from attacking. It wasn't Earth ships. So now you've wiped out Earth. So going back to the Kalan attack, it doesn't do any good. So don't mess with time is the best thing to do. And if anything, this episode shows that, because all you do is psychologically damage people that may or may not exist.
I agree.
So I digress.
We're going to go to Strange New Worlds in a second. I'm going to give this episode a 10, by the way, because any episode that really gets me right there, it gets me there. Yeah. Like, we're bordering 8, 9, 10 territory, and like, it's just the consistency as well coming out of Orville recently. Yep. Like I think this entire season's been fantastic from the very start, and the episodes just seem to be getting better and better. And that's why I'm giving it a 10, because it gets me in the feels, and the consistency, and seeing a comical character like Malloy doing such a serious, showing the serious side to his character and the performances, fantastic. I loved it. Daniel Vance has said, leave Isaac in the past as Malloy's wife. Take the wife and kid to the future with you. Isaac takes the long road to the future. But but Isaac will never. Well, I'm sure he's laughing. Maybe taking a piss here, but Isaac, like, Malloy's wife, will know that's not Malloy, So, and Isaac can never truly be. Anyway, regardless.
Best line. Best line was when Isaac was like, insemination has not occurred yet, and fucking Charlie was like, she was like, for fuck's sake, or some shit like that. Like, her reaction to that, I fucking rewound that shit like 5 times just watching that fucking reaction to his like, oh my god, dude. For people that say there's no humor in this show, that is not true. The humor is done slightly, but it's so good when it is there. It is so appropriate.
Deadpan characters are their own humor. In Orville, you got Isaac and you got Bortus, and they're very funny in their own way. Even Spock in Strange New Worlds with his deadpan persona is hilarious at times. It really is. And there's so many ways of getting comedy through characters like that. Cheetah says, beware the rage of a desperate man.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Joshua Owen says, I would have sent a warning. That way there weren't 2 Orvilles.
Well, here's the thing, based on the time travel. And again, here's where we deal into the paradoxes. And this is why I say I don't think the Malloy was erased. The family. Is because if you erase that Malloy from existing, then you erase Ed and Kelly from going there, and you erase that Orville from being there. So if you go back, even further, then they couldn't. Then when they go to that initial jump point, there's nothing there. So it creates so many paradoxes. So that's why every timeline continues to exist from that point on. Like, it just it has to be that way, because no timeline is erased. It can't be erased because it just can't, because it would be universal multiversal shattering because of just that one instance. So I have to believe, and it's not just me wanting to, because it's heartbreaking to think otherwise, but just from that one fundamental point, that family has to continue to exist, because otherwise the Orville would never. Yeah, you get my point.
No problem. Okay, well, last comment regarding the Orville, and then we're going to jump onto Strange New Worlds very shortly.
I got about 15 minutes before I got a jet. So
Okay, yeah, the attack. Okay, Cheeto, hurry your ass up, man. We've been fucking delaying this shit for you, man. Get back from fucking Jesus camp and get your ass on here, mate. The attack on the Starbase, I mean, the entire situation in that episode would have been avoided if they never went to the Starbase. I'm kind of lost.
He's talking about at the beginning of this episode, not the attack, not the attack on the Kalon with Isaac. Let's just go into. Sorry, go on. Let's just go on to the next comment with the point about the timelines not being erased. I think maybe the Marvel was saying the same thing with regards to the sandwich. Yeah, well, he had to send that sandwich back, or he would have created a paradox. Yeah, for sure. Okay, look, we're done now talking about the Orville. We both enjoyed it here. We're both giving it maximum marks. I really enjoyed it. Can't wait for the next episode. But let's talk about the finale of Strange New Worlds. And here we have with us Captain Major Rage. Hello, mate. How you doing?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for waiting patiently in the waiting room, Mage. We were stalling as much as possible because I know Cheetah wanted to join us, but he's too busy singing hallelujahs right now. So hopefully he will join us at some particular point. But Mage, you being our resident Star Trek guy within our group because you love the show so much that you even got yourself a fucking captain's uniform. Before we start talking about it, about the show and breaking it down, what did you think of today's episode of Star Trek New Worlds, the finale?
I feel like it was an amazing episode of Star Trek. I tugged at the heartstrings, suspense, beautifully paced, action, diplomacy, just about everything you could ask for out of an episode of Star Trek, down to, an ethical dilemma. The question of how aggressively do you try to protect peace, and to what measures do you go to try to preserve it? And I feel like it was a weighty episode that tied together a lot of the plot points, the overarching plot of Captain Pike accepting his fate, and I just feel like it was a great finale. What did you gentlemen think, Zam?
Yeah, if you don't mind me starting first, yes. When you watch some of the Marvel stuff, you get like these what if episodes. What if so and so happened instead of so and so? And this was that episode. What if Pike never ended up in the Cabbage Patch chair? This is what occurred, in a way it's amazing that because he never ended up being a crippled man, the whole fucking universe goes to shit. So he's almost like, okay, I have to be a cripple or everything's going to be fucked up. And that kind of what boils down to this episode. Seeing Pike in the film universe uniforms as well was pretty cool. Good makeup job on making him look a little bit older as well. This episode was you said it in a Facebook post once. You said this was a bit of a trippy episode. You're damn fucking right. There was moments when he was in the sick bay and the way the camera was, he was almost like he was on roller skates.
That dolly shot. Was.
Yeah.
Did that remind you guys of Spike Lee at all?
Oh, a whole bunch of things, yeah, but definitely, and also obviously hearing. I'm going to add you in the second, Cheeto. Also, all those things like with Scotty, you can hear his voice in the background and stuff like that without seeing him. It was trippy. A great episode. I'll pass it on to you, but I'm just going to add Cheeto in there as well. Hello, my son. Welcome.
Hey, Cheeto.
Welcome to the Thunderdome.
Thanks. Just got home from picking up the kids, so
wonderful.
But I'm glad I made Strange New Worlds.
Well, the thing for me is, I think this episode, like, first off, I fangirled out to seeing Pike in a Monster Maroon uniform. That was cool as shit. Especially with the Frank and I are always talking about how it's irritating that with every new Star Trek series they have new uniforms, and when are they going to stop? And And I thought, finally, okay, they got these new uniforms. Okay, that's all they're going to do. And then they dropped this in the final episode of this episode. And I'm like, God dang it, that's one more I got to go get. That sucks. Damn it, but it's so damn nice looking. It's so great. But it was so cool to see Pike in this uniform, and he looked so good in it, you know. And you could tell that it was one of those like, oh, shit hit the fan. I've seen some shit. All right, let's get this done. And for some reason, it had the vibe of yesterday's Enterprise to it. Just him walking and the weight of how he carried himself. It had that. I've seen battle. I've seen, you know, the war torn era. You know, and just him walking in the Monster Maroon, even though it had the kind of the weird top that the Strange New Worlds uniform had, like that one slight difference was kind of like the difference between the regular uniforms and the yesterday's Enterprise uniforms with the belt and the round collar instead of the V. It was a slight difference where it's like it was enough to show, you know, it was enough to have that vibe of these are war times. It feels off. It was familiar, yet it felt off. And I liked that. But I think the episode as a whole, it showed you that, I mean, Pike, he didn't make any mistakes, and he still lost. Kind of like how Picard told Data, you know, that, you know, sometimes it's possible to make no mistakes and still lose. And I think that's the case here with Pike, where you're a good leader, but you're not the leader that we need in this situation. In this situation, like, we needed Kirk. And by you saving those kids and yourself, you kind of fucking everything up here, man. And, you know, I loved seeing this new Kirk. I know some people have said that he was kind of underwhelming, but I think that was kind of the point, because most of the reaction that he had, or most of the interaction he has, is with Pike, you know, and it's kind of hard when Pike is the lead of the series and he's such an overwhelming lead. But I think he did pretty good. I'm not a fan of Chris Pine's Pike, or Chris Pine's Kirk. I'm not a fan of him. And William Shatner's kind of been done to death, but I kind of liked this one. So I really enjoyed this episode, but I did feel that with him being shown that history of what if, I liked it. Plus the balance of terror, seeing it through a different lens, I liked it a lot. And Scotty, damn it, Scotty, you know. So, I liked it a lot.
People forget that Kirk in the TOS is a bit stiffer than he was in the movies. He loosened up in the movies, which is that's when you got the caricature of Kirk by all these different actors. And I think maybe some people wanted that version of Kirk in this, but you needed to still be that stiffer young guy who thinks he knows everything and all of that before he became more of a relaxed older guy like he was in the films. Cheeto, what did you think of this episode?
I really like this episode. I thought it was like when I heard that Kirk was coming by the end of season 1, I was like, oh great, we're gonna see Kirk in we're gonna see Kirk, you know, now and truth be told, we just saw him in kind of a timey-wimey episode, and I'm like, all right, I can go with this. I'm okay with this. I'm not sure about the actor. As I said, I don't want another William Shatner. But for some reason he was a bit weird to me. So it may just be like the Kirk of it all conflicting with an actual real good actor. You know, like, you know, you got Shatner over here, and then you got a good actor here who's playing Kirk, and it's like, yeah, I kind of want Kirk, but at the same time, I want something better. You know, so I didn't mind it, but at the same time, I was like, man, something's off. Every time he was on the screen, I'm like, something's off. Maybe he's too skinny to be Kirk. I always felt like Kirk was a little bit more stocky, but it's not that big of a deal. It was weird for me. Like, I didn't hate it. It didn't ruin the episode for me. I loved seeing the maroon uniforms just because it was a nice callback to the original series, and You know, yes, those uniforms did exist in Star Trek at one point. They've acknowledged them in TNG. They've like outside of the original series movies, they've acknowledged them in TNG, and they've also acknowledged them here now that they will be happening. So I'm pretty glad that we got those, because those are like the uniforms you never see anymore. You know, like even in timey-wimey things, it's like you never see those uniforms. So it was actually good for them to acknowledge it and everything like that. Plus, we got a lot of retro recap, if I can, or retro recanonization that nothing has changed, you know, because when Kirk was talking about his, you know, his father and everything like that, and how he was the first officer on the Kelvin. So it's like, I mean, but they're recanonizing it because, you know, he said that he looked up to his father and everything like that. So they're recanonizing that, hey, this is prime timeline, you know, we're doing things correctly. The balance of terror parts of it were pretty good. I knew that was going to be a sticking point for a lot of Trek purists, but I think them putting it in the limelight of a alternate future thing. But I did like the aesthetic that they put on it, where they definitely honored the original series like look, but yet still kind of updated it so that it looked, you know, not as cringe as the original series was. And I know the original series was made in the 60s, so I know why it looks cringe. But there was a lot of respect there. I'm battling with this episode only because I don't know. I didn't think it was bad at all. But then at the same time, it was the episode that I knew was coming, was that laser focus on Pike's future and everything. So I don't know. Come back to me after I hear all of your guys' thoughts, and
Okay.
you know, when I do, I'll give a full rating. But I'm still going back and forth about it.
So we get to the comments here. So Josh Irwin says, okay, so Star Trek Strange New World was Star Trek New Voyages episode in harm's way. Just see, you guys know all the names. I just remember, oh, it's that episode or that episode. I never remember the fucking names. But in harm's way, just with Romulans instead of the Doomsday Machine. CBS is stealing from fan films. Just ask Vance.
They're probably watching your fan films. I'm just saying, like there's probably somebody on CBS who's like actually watches all these fan films and like.
I'm just saying a stone that can see into other dimensions and the future and all these things. I'm just saying it's, you know,
it's almost like a Valhalla stone. I mean,
I just yeah. Who would have thunk? You know.
Exactly.
I mean, the Lower Decks writers take material and reference memes from the Star Trek shitposting Facebook group. They're definitely aware of what's going on here on the internet, and it's influencing what they're writing.
Actually, fans have become a wealth of information finding and ideas for writers nowadays. I mean, you saw Spider-Man No Way Home, where they did the famous Spider-Man meme. You know, where everyone's, you know, all the three Spider-Mans are pointing to each other. So anyways, we got a happy face as well from Josh. Daniel Vance has said, love Matthew McFadzean's portrayal of the Romulan commander, perfection. You know what they should have done? And Jesse Gender said this. They should have got the actor who played Sarek in Discovery.
I think that would have been an amazing nod to the original.
Right.
yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
like, nobody would notice it except for us. But yeah, I would have noticed because I was looking.
Well, Star Trek fans would notice it, but apparently what Jesse said was that they probably the makers would be worried that if they got somebody like him to play dual roles, it would have confused any noobs. For fuck's sake, Star Trek is not about noobs. People are watching this shit. They've been watching this shit for you know, like different variations of Star Trek for years. They get it.
Trust me, my kids and my girlfriend don't watch Star Trek just because I do. Like, trust me. Like, my girlfriend sat downstairs and watched Star Trek for literally 5 minutes with me. Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Okay, bye. And like that, I mean, literally, like we were eating and I was watching it, and she's just like, Star Trek's not getting any new fans that I know. I mean, truth be told, like.
It's funny because like back in the day when they did that, like reused all the old actors. Look at Trelane. He played a Klingon and he played Trelane. Same thing with Sarek's actor, played a Romulan, played a Vulcan. You know, it's like back in the day when you had a more limited amount of actors, you know, and only like 3 channels on TV, as opposed to now where you have Hulu, you have Netflix, you have, you know, Paramount Plus, you have all these different streaming services, and yet and all these actors, and yet they're, oh, am I confused people? I don't fucking think so. It's I think we're good. People are confused. It's their own GD fault. But anyway, I got to skedaddle, guys. I got to go grab my numbers. So
okay, Vance, thank you very much for joining us, by the way.
Thanks for having me. Nice seeing you guys. So
good to see you too.
All right, so Joshua has also said the Pike 6 base shot is called a snorri cam. Camera attached to the actor's body is used a lot in indie films. Yeah, like Train Spotting. I hope you guys tell me you've seen Train Spotting. Yeah, Train Spotting's awesome. Stuff like that. I love shit like that. Oh, I love Train Spotting. What a great film. Daniel wants those wet look Star Trek 2 uniforms are ugly. You know why they made those uniforms? Because the actors were getting fat and they needed to hide their gigantic guts.
Yeah, they couldn't wear the t-shirts and the pajama shirts anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Without looking like extremely bloated.
Yeah, exactly. Last thing, Admiral Pike in the red uniform. Time to buy that uniform. It still looked different to the uniforms they used in the films. Like there was like a thing along the arms. I noticed on Pike's.
That texture,
I think,
that makes.
But I think we're gonna see that regard. Like, let's say we get to that. I think they're still gonna use that because I think that's an aesthetic change. That's not a timeline change.
Yeah, I agree. Daniel Bonds. In one scene, we see the Enterprise flying through warp upside down. This is the orientation Gene Roddenberry originally envisioned. The Enterprise flying through space. Yeah, because the ship was they turned the ship upside down.
Yeah, the saucer was originally on the bottom, and then the cells were originally on the bottom.
I'm glad it's the way it is.
Oh, me too. I think that would have been a butt ugly ship. With the nacelles on the bottom and I mean, some ships are okay with the nacelles on the bottom, but it's like, no, with the saucer on the bottom like that and everything, it doesn't work for the Constitution class. And I'm not even a huge fan of the Connie class, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, it looked okay on that ship. Khan stole in Star Trek 2. That the way that ship was designed.
The Miranda class.
Yeah. So I don't know. Strange New Worlds season 1 episode 10. Love this episode very much. I give it a 10. Okay, well we're gonna get there eventually, Jimmy. Daniel Vance. I'm the one who watches the fan films and report to CBS.
I knew it. I knew Daniel Vance was a mole.
And that's why he's watching all our stuff because he needs all that information. Mark Leonard Sarek was also the film captain Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
That is correct.
I vaguely remember that film. It's quite shit, to tell you the truth. Night View Man, okay, and Cheers, no budget productions, wonderful. Okay, so time to break it down, May. You just said let's do this.
All right, I'm going to try to keep this very brief and just hit the high notes tonight. So you guys have been here a while.
I mean, we've all seen this episode before. It's just with Captain Pike instead of Captain Kirk, right?
It's mostly the same stuff as Balance of Terror, yes. I enjoyed it still, but we'll get to the play-by-play. We start with the captain's log. He explains the neutral zone. They're there to resupply and retrofit outposts along it. He's having breakfast with his special friend. I feel like there's a bit of symbolism with the turning the leftover pasta into something new for breakfast, like he does with the pasta mama.
Yeah. As his friend with benefits, by the way. Her name was Patel. Did you notice that? And she doesn't look like a fucking Patel. I look like a fucking Patel.
I thought I heard Patel.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, but Patel's an Indian.
I think in the 22nd century, they've grown past labels like that. Man, come on. I mean,
I'm just saying, unless maybe she's like her great grandfather was Indian, and then she just happens to now look like the way she does now. I'm just saying. It was a bit weird. Seeing a white person with the name Patel, or if it's Patel, then fine. But I thought it was Patel. That came across a bit weird for me initially. If I heard it that way. All right. Anyway, sorry. I apologize.
No need. So she, observes that he seems less haunted than the last time she saw him. They make plans to maybe see each other again, but they cut to the meeting with the commander of the outpost, and during outline what's going to happen, their time frame and everything, his son comes in. It turns out this is one of the cadets in the future that the captain will save, that lands him in the chair.
He actually dies. Actually, this kid. He doesn't save him. He saves a whole bunch of them, but 2 of them die, and this is one of them.
Oh, good catch.
Which is why he decides to send him the letter, which makes him not, just basically tell him not to do what he does on that date, so he doesn't die. You know what I mean?
No, that's an important detail that I was about to gloss over. Very good catch.
Yeah, no problem.
Captain leaves and excuses himself because he's very understandably upset. Una chases him down, confirms the fact this is one of those that would die that day. She pitches once again the idea of him doing something to alter his fate, and he goes to his quarters and he starts writing a letter when he gets a visit from someone who looks like him, but in a, the maroon monster uniform, and we cut to credits.
This is, as I said earlier, he's about to write a letter to that kid who he wasn't able to save, which in the accident which ruined his life, and that's when Captain Pike from the future comes along and stops himself. Well, basically tells himself, don't send that. You don't want to send that. And it's weird in a way because Pike sees himself alive, so he knows that there is a timeline with him alive, but he doesn't get why sending that would be the bad sin because he makes it. So yeah. Chio, you got anything to add?
No, I mean, as I said, it was a pretty good opening. Him wearing the maroon monster uniform. Is that what it's called? Maroon monster? I just call them the maroon uniforms, but I mean,
I call it the gut hiding uniform.
Yeah. But no, I honestly pop for that only because you don't see that enough in Star Trek. Like you don't see that era of Star Trek uniforms that much. And it's not that I like those uniforms all that much. It's just something that's kind of, just something. It's a little bit of a lost Easter egg that you don't see very often.
I think it's not a very practical uniform. They're on a ship. I feel like something like that uniform would be very restrictive. It's overly formal in my opinion.
It's reminiscent of a 17th and 18th century naval uniform.
I was about to say, it just reminds me of an actual naval uniform. I know that they were looking to hide the aging figures of the TOS cast, but that's kind of why they went with that style because they look more like naval uniforms, and in Star Trek 2, they were trying to make Starfleet seem a little bit more militaristic, so they were trying to do the all matching uniforms with different insignias on it, but it just became harder and harder for people to tell what, because in the original series they had the colors, and that's why in TNG they went back to the colors because it was harder for people to tell who was who. Now everybody knew who was who because everybody knew those characters, but like if you brought out a whole new crew with those uniforms, you would have a hard time figuring out who's who, and so I think the color palette was good that they switched it back. But as I said, it did give it more of like a uniform feel. Anyway, go ahead, Mage. Sorry.
So after the credits, Captain Pike from the future gives, present Pike a detail to let him, prove that he is who he is, and tells him that he's brought the warning. He's brought the time crystal from Boreth that the monks have sent because they know he won't believe unless he experiences it. And so
this is from Discovery, isn't it? I almost forgot about that time crystal.
Yeah,
one of the stupidest fucking things I've ever seen in Star Trek. No offense, it's fucking stupid.
It really. When that showed up again, I'm like, oh god, here we go, season 2. No, oh god, Please no, because it's like Klingons apparently have solved time travel. Apparently, like I know that it's a crystal and it's natural, but
Klingon monks, mate. Klingon monks.
yeah,
Are you
that
fucking
is.
kidding me?
I mean, you could have
Fucking
told me
stupid.
anything. You could have told me that a traveler brought him back in time, and I would have been more. As I said, that was one of the things in season 2 of Discovery that I hated was that Klingon monk timey wimey. Like, wasn't it like the one daughter went down to the planet and then beamed back up, and she was like already an adult or something that whole thing is.
Yes,
I mean,
Star Trek. Yeah.
you sit there and
Hold
tell
on.
me that Klingons are this advanced, and it just doesn't work for me. I know.
Yeah, like the Star Trek too often goes down the monk territory. Like they've done that with Romulans now as well. It's like, for fuck's sake, just anyway. Daniel Vaughn says Pike's appearance at the wedding was acknowledges to Picard showing up at his first briefing and all good things. Both were saved by a red alert.
That's always
Okay.
good.
Yep. So that's a good transition. That's after the captain touches the crystal, he does end up in the cargo bay. He's in a situation that doesn't know what's going on. It's actually the wedding that we see at the beginning of Balance of Terror. It's our first hint that that's the events that we're going to be playing out today. He's saved by the red alert, saved by the bell, and he gets called to from Spock. The outpost number 4 is under attack along the neutral zone. He heads to the bridge. Ortegas kind of has this moment. She explains it's probably the Romulans. Kind of her Warhawk starts showing right then, and it's going to become a theme throughout the episode.
But by the way, I can someone explain how the hell he ended up in that period? Like, what did fucking old man Pike just snapped his fingers and like past Pike ended up 7 years in the future? Like, well, how the fuck did that happen? Can someone explain that to me?
Timey-wimey bullshit. That's how it happened.
It just
did he touch the?
Yeah, no.
Oh yeah, he touched the stone. Sorry, he
stone.
touched the stone. Yeah, the time stone.
Yeah, the crystal just does exactly what the plot needs it to do.
Yeah, it's the plot crystal. That's what we're gonna call it.
I like it.
Yeah, and I noticed that there was
gonna put the plot crystal in his glove.
There was no Una in this particular time. Excuse me.
Yeah, they kind of touch on that, but don't really explain it a little bit later. But Pike explains to Spock what's up. He doesn't really believe him until he mind melds with him. But then they kind of have this good bonding moment where Pike explains that he's going to sacrifice for somebody important to him, and Spock guesses a little bit. He asks. Go ahead.
Like, aesthetically wise, like when they're on the bridge, I really wish. I know this is not a big deal for too many people, but I really wish they gave Uhura a bit of an afro. I mean,
yeah, I did notice that. I really wish they would have kind of made her hair look a little bit more like
a bit more volume in the hair.
I read an interview where they left it up to the actress and she chose to keep her natural hair.
Yeah, I think they. for the sake of like timey-wimey,
Yeah, I don't mind her keeping her natural hair like during the series, but like, yeah, she's kind of going to the future. It's supposed to be Balance of Terror, like playing out. I get it, like, okay, timey-wimey stuff. This is a different future now, so Pike could have said, "Hey, I like your haircut. Maybe you should leave it that way." And then, then from there, her hair's still short. It's a small detail, but I thought that exact same thing. I thought, I was like, man, they really should have played on that TOS Uhura vibe in this, at least in this episode.
Daniel Vance has said, if Una is in the penal colony in the altered timeline, chances are she's been treated with the neural neutralizer device we saw in TOS Dagger of the Mind, which Kirk put an end to it in TOS. See, like I said, when you mention these names of the series, I don't know. I just know the episode visually in my mind. I just never fucking remember the name, other than like the odd 1 or 2 episodes, like the Best of Both Worlds and shit like that. Anyway, Major Ray, please continue.
So Spock and Pike finish out their little conference. Spock admonishes him to just do what he would normally do. That's the only way that they're going to figure out what it is exactly that causes the timeline to go so awful. They reach out to the nearest ship, the Farragut. Uhura notes that that's the ship that Lon's on now. They get a communication from the commander of Outpost 4, Hansen, and it's audio only at first. They've been attacked by an unknown weapon, by a hidden enemy that just goes through their shields. He switches to visual and shows just the utter destruction of this solid steel bunker a mile underground in the asteroid. That's just the destructive power of this weapon. A bird of prey uncloaks and blasts with some sort of plasma weapon, and
You're right there, mate.
So sorry, lost my place.
This is where the Farragut comes into play. So I do remember.
They get
Pike
hailed by Kirk.
Somebody mentions Captain James D. Kirk is the captain of the Farragut, and then I remember Pike saying, "What, Sam's brother?" like that, and I was thinking, okay, all right, but as much as this is like stuff like this is a little bit fan servicey for me, like I would have been happy not even having a smitten of Kirk for 3 or 4 seasons. This is how it is, unfortunately. Like, we hear Scotty's voice and stuff like that. They really feel like they need to service certain things. So that's how I felt with Kirk in this episode. But he is the captain of the Farragut.
To me, the only saving grace for them including Jim T. Kirk this early in it is it's set in the future in the timeline where he should be captain. Exactly. That's the only saving grace of that for me.
And I noticed at the end of the episode, he was looking at Jim Kirk's
service record,
and I think it said commander on there, so he's technically not even captain yet in this universe. So I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see Jim Kirk again on the Farragut, like if they ever come across the Farragut in season 2. I just hope they don't pull a Pike in season 2, because like in Discovery we had Pike for all of season 2 because he was a loner captain while the Discovery didn't have a. Now all of a sudden we don't have Una, and I know we're going to get to that later, but now we're not going to have Una next season. So what is Kirk going to be now Pike's first officer in next season? Like I kind of hope they're not going that route. I hope Spock would be his number one. You don't need you don't need Kirk over there, but I've already seen that they've confirmed Kirk for next season, at least in some capacity. So I'm like,
he's Lieutenant Kirk next season because they'll go back to the time.
No, he's Commander Kirk now because when he went back in time.
No. Next season, when they go back, when Pike goes back to his original timeline, and he meets Kirk, James Kirk, he's going to be lieutenant then because he's not been promoted yet.
So how's he going to get from lieutenant to captain in 7 years? That's a bit.
Mate, have you not seen the fucking Kelvin timeline?
Look, don't consider the Kelvin timeline a real thing. Like
I'm just saying, yeah. Well, I mean, just saying, like anything's possible. But yeah, he doesn't like to lose. Remember that.
That's J.J. Abrams bullshit. I don't consider that.
Yeah, but we get that briefing, don't we, between Kirk and Sam? Sorry, not Kirk and Sam. Between Pike and Sam Kirk, which and he explains us everything we need to know about Kirk that we already fucking knew anyway. But
it's brutally honest, like only a brother can be about brother.
And he's the older brother as well, and he's not. His younger brother is a higher rank than him. That must burn. Yeah, maybe having to take orders from your younger brother for fuck's sake. Trust me, my elder brother will never take fucking orders from me.
Well, but also Jim Sam Kirk is in a different division though. Also, he's in I think the science division, right? He's in the science division, not the command.
Yeah, but you get people who are science, Spock became captain. Beverly Crusher became a captain.
I know,
You
but
know,
there's
like-
also in TNG they do mention that there are caps to certain divisions that you can't get. Like I understand like you say that, but then at the same time there's also explanations in canon that say that there are caps to those ranks, like in the science division. Now you're right. Beverly became a captain in an alternate timeline. Spock became a captain, but yeah, it's a little weird
Well,
because
but I think people even like Janeway was a science officer, but when she became promoted to captain, she had to put on the commander uniform. You know,
Mhm.
like I think
She's
people,
an astrophysicist.
yeah. So like once you might have been a science officer, but once you get promoted, you got to like add more strings to your bow, so to speak. So yeah. Um. Anyway, sorry. Please continue.
Okay, well, yeah, no, they started the cat and mouse with Spock trying to track the Romulan cloaked ship with gravitational lensing. Ortegas was kind of, being really bloodthirsty. She's already advising that they just try to take it out, not even kind of chase and pursue. Like you described, we get that scene where Pike calls in Sam Kirk to get the scoop on his brother, kind of what he should expect out of him. Spock intercepts a very interesting piece of visual transmission off of the Romulan ship that ended up bouncing off of a comet somehow. And when they view it, it turns out that Romulans look very, very much like Vulcans, and everybody turns to Spock.
Well, this was hilarious. Actually, you got one person turning their head, and another person,
Next,
then another
and the
person,
next.
and then fucking Spock does a people's eyebrow. Yeah,
well, and I mean that's very evocative
of the
original
Nimoy
episode.
Spock.
yeah, exactly.
I
We
mean,
haven't really
like,
seen that from him until then. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that was more like I don't feel like that was a creative decision in the episode. I feel like that was just more of an homage to the original episode. Like, that whole, because I feel like they wouldn't have done it that way if it wasn't an homage to the original episode where everybody just kind of starts looking at Spock, one by one.
Yeah, I agree.
So next we get a scene with
one more thing. Yeah, there are a lot of aliens that look like fucking humans in Star Trek, and nobody thinks that fucking all humans. Nobody like correlates aliens that look like humans to be the same as humans, if you know what I mean. But the moment they see some fuckers with pointy ears, boom, they're just like Vulcans.
Yeah, I know.
So, come on.
Some textbook
Yeah.
anti-Vulcan racism from
Yeah.
the
And I
TOS
mean,
era.
even the Romulans had more of a bone ridge, like not a bone ridge, but like a cranial ridge that goes across up here. Like Vulcans don't have that, so it's almost like they saw the pointy ears and they said that's almost like me, assuming Zam is from some other place that he's not from just because of the color of his skin. Almost, you know what I mean? Like it's
It's still bigotry.
yeah, like it doesn't sit well in the episode. Like nowadays, it doesn't sit well in the episode because it is. They looked at the pointy ears and they assumed he's. It's like other races don't have pointy ears at all. Like the only difference, they even had cranial differences. I'm like, this kind of doesn't track with me. That's why I'm like, I felt like this is one of the things about the episode that I'm like, it doesn't translate well. Even though it was fine in the '60s, it doesn't translate well to today, in my opinion.
Yeah, plus in Discovery they really defined the differences between Vulcans and Romulans. You could see, regardless of both species having pointy ears, you could see they were different. Their ears were different, for fuck's sake. The ridges on their foreheads were different. They made them as different as they can be. Anyway, please continue.
So we get another one of the mini conference scenes in this episode. Lots of tense meetings. Just well-paced episode, though. I feel like it kept the tension running throughout. They kind of discuss what they should do next. Kirk posits that the Romulans are probably trying to sow discord. They've intentionally let them see what they look like to try to evoke this kind of reaction. But as they argue about whether or not they should chase the ship down, the the doctor says basically, I vote against war. If we chase them down, we're going to start an intergalactic incident. Kirk says, we don't want to appear weak. And then Spock, he agrees. He backs him up, saying that if they are offshoots of Vulcans and maybe they've stayed militaristic like the old Vulcan way, that, any display of weakness would be inviting further attack.
Yeah, sometimes the way the Romulans are acting in this episode, they might as well be fucking Klingons. But
well, I mean, Romulans throughout all of history have shared that. Like,
it's an infinite expansion directive that's a primary part of their society.
And also their paranoia plays into that too. I mean, like
that. They are paranoid.
I mean, that the paranoia is that they want to be superior to everybody so that they can, they don't have to fear anybody. They do have that huge, that paranoia complex where it's just like
don't trust anyone.
The plotting and scheming is just second nature.
Yeah. Spock had a throwaway line about wishing to oversee the repairs of the phaser array. Personally, I think it shows that Spock of this timeline is more in line with Kirk and not Pike. Yeah, I agree. He seemed a bit more gung ho Spock in this, in the future Spock. That is for sure.
I think he wanted answers by any means necessary. Like, I know logically he wasn't thinking that, but I think he was also this logically makes sense, but I want answers.
He's curious. Like, what the fuck? These guys look like me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Continue, please, Mage.
So Kirk pitches this pincer move through as the Romulan ship passes through a tail of the comet. And the disruption of the particles will make them visible for a little bit. They try this pincer move, but the Romulans attack unexpectedly. The Farragut gets taken from behind, starts taking, heavy damage. They end up, having to evacuate everybody off. Pike goes down and meets Lon in the transporter room. She's a commander now. We get this line about nobody can talk to Una. She's not allowed contact. So another one of these breadcrumbs for that.
And also, Seng had, she seemed to be a bit more human, so to speak.
She hugged Pike, and he's like, I didn't realize you were a hugger.
A bit more relaxed, Kind of reminded me of T'Pol when we saw her in the future as an old woman and how human she was acting. Yeah. In that episode of Enterprise.
Yeah, she probably went on some sort of journey of self-discovery while she was outside of Federation space searching for the family of that little girl.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Gives us, kind of hints at what we might see for character development out of her. We get to a scene where Kirk comes in and he jumps all over Pike about his hesitation in the previous encounter. Pike retorts with, quips about, it's his ship and you just got yours blown up. The Enterprise has no weapons. The Romulan ship's engines are down. Pike comes up with a plan to pitch a ceasefire and ends up kind of negotiating with the commander of the Romulan ship for a 2-hour ceasefire for them to both effect repairs of their vessels. He goes for it. Then Ortegas loudly and forcibly objects this course of action, and we see Pike get some bass in his voice and yell for her to stand down.
I love that.
I thought you were going to say you loved that.
No, I loved it for a couple of reasons. For a start, Ortegas. You could say that Ortegas has been on the journey, but we haven't seen it because we just started with Ortegas, and she's kind of happy-go-lucky, and now we're 7 years later, and she's kind of bitter. You know what I mean? And we haven't seen what the journey that has made her like that, but she's obviously very much shoot first, ask questions later now. All of a sudden, and she she wants justice. She wants revenge. She's shouting at Pike, and Pike just gives it right back to her. And you know what? It's been 10 episodes coming, so well done, Captain Pike. About time, but at the same time, it was good character development without actually seeing the development, but understanding that she has been on a journey that we haven't experienced as well. So there's a whole bunch of things there.
Cheeto, what'd you think of this last series of scenes?
I mean, I thought it was good. It kind of starts leaning into the whole balance of terror of it. I mean, but there are some I mean, I haven't watched Balance of Terror in a long time, but I mean, it definitely leaned into a lot of that. And it's interesting seeing the tale of two captains here, where it's like how two captains would have handled it. But this is what happens when you have two captains handling the same situation, opposing one another rather than there only being one. I thought it was very interesting the route that they went with that, because if Pike is there, then Pike's more in the way than he is anything else. So I thought it was very interesting the way that they were going about it. I kind of figured that how this was going to, I thought I figured how this was going to end. And it didn't end the way I thought it would exactly. We'll get to that point in a little bit, but because I thought something different was going to happen, but kind of along the same lines. So go ahead and keep going.
So we kind of continue this Tale of Two Captains thing. We cut over to the Romulan ship, and one of his underlings, the commanders, is questioning his decision to agree to the ceasefire. They end up getting into a discussion about the Romulan way, and the older commander, he gives a story of how the sub-commander's father got himself needlessly killed, and said that there's no room for pride in a mission like this.
Yeah, because he's jaded, isn't he? The captain, like he's been fighting.
He's tired.
Life. Yeah,
he's tired of all this. He remembers a time when Romulus wasn't at war, and I feel like he's ready to see that day again. He also says that he's old and he doesn't care what people think of him anymore. On the Enterprise, Spock and Pike, they kind of discuss if they've seen the worst of what this day can bring, or if they've yet to see what is going to really make the timeline so dark that the captain would come from the future and warn himself to not write the letter. Kirk comes in and he pitches a plan for if the Romulans decide to call for backup since they're so close. He proposes kind of a bluff and says, all you got to do is give me a shuttle. So he leaves in the shuttle. We don't know what his plan is yet. We cut to Spock and a off-screen Scottish accented engineer working on restoring weapons function. So we've got a nice off-screen Scotty reference.
I really,
he worked on the Farragut as well, hasn't he? So,
huh?
I think there's mention of him maybe being on the Farragut as well.
I don't know. Scotty, no, I think
maybe
he's
not.
the chief. I think he's the chief engineer on the Enterprise in this timeline. Still, I thought that this was a little bit of a cop out, though.
Oh yes, yeah.
If you're gonna do it, then cast Scotty. Like, I mean, like if you're gonna do it, then do it. Like, don't just show. Like, it's okay if they did over the comms, but like they even went to have him reaching around the corner with the red uniform on, and I'm like, no, like that. Either put him over the comms like he's not there, but he's talking to Spock, or or cast him and put him on the screen. But don't do this whole, his face is obscured and he's reaching around up the tube. Like, that's so dumb. Like, I thought that was stupid.
Yeah,
I see your points.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point. It didn't bother me as much, but I totally see your point.
I mean, it's just it's like crap or get off the pot. Like, really, like, just, if you're going to cast, and we're probably looking at Scotty next season, because, I mean, he might be coming. I mean, maybe they'll do, a bait and switch and throw another chief engineer in there before Scotty gets there, or a temporary chief engineer or something like that. But it's just like, it's almost like, okay, guys, we get it. It's Scotty.
Yeah, I mean, they even made sure to put in the subtitles that it was Scottish accent.
Well, how old is Christopher Dune? I mean, yes, If he's like in his 40s or 50s, then he might be.
I would
too
say
old
he's got to
for
be
this, so-
older now.
Yeah. So, can you do a good Scottish accent like his dad? But James Doohan's he could do a whole bunch of fucking accents, and apparently he was a stand-up comedian, and he was doing stand-up comedy, and he did a Scottish accent, and I think Gene Roddenberry was watching, and that's how he got his job. Anyways,
So on the bridge, the 2 hours is up, still no weapons function. Pike calls the Romulan commander, and he starts once again kind of imploring for peace. All of a sudden, a whole armada of Romulan ships showed up. It turns out that the sub-commander called Romulus, and they've sent reinforcements. Yes, Cheeto.
So this part really annoyed me because
How'd they get there so quick?
How did they get there so quick? Because look, they got that massive feat. The Praetor of Romulus got there in 2 hours, but yet Starfleet can't get there for weeks. Like I get it. The Federation space is a little bit bigger, but you cannot tell me that Romulan fleet, unless now if they would have said a throwaway line saying, actually we've been prepared for this for a while. We've been on standby, on the other side of the neutral zone, at a starbase waiting, like, for this moment for us to come and take advantage of it.
They kind of said that the mission to destroy the outpost was kind of a probing mission to test for weakness, but they never explicitly said, yes, we've been laying in wait. So no, that's a big weakness for the episode. They should have put that out there that they were waiting kind of on the other side of the neutral zone. I mean, with Romulan arrogance, they would have said that. Like they would have mentioned that, saying we have actually been, we have been doing these probing missions for a while now with our cloaked vessels. We've been patiently waiting here on the other side of the neutral zone. But no, it's like they just show up in 2 hours, and it's like, and another thing is the Romulan neutral zone is not a thin sliver. The Romulan neutral zone is actually, I think they said it's like a couple light years apart, isn't it? Like it doesn't it encapsulate some systems too? Like
I'm sure it's quite big.
In the TNG era, it seemed to be sold as a much larger piece of space than it was being sold as today. I mean, they were having a Mexican showdown, a Mexican standoff across the neutral zone within viewer range of each other, basically in phaser range. So it was sold as a very narrow swath of space.
Yeah, and I really feel like I thought there were star systems in the Romulan neutral zone.
I thought so too.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, that is again another nitpick, but the two things about the Romulan neutral zone and how the fleet got there so fast really hit me a little bit the wrong way.
The Praetor, like you said, she's showed up. She's on the flagship, calls Pike demanding for unconditional surrender. Kirk shows up with his plan. The reinforcements he's brought are just unmanned mining ships.
Which is a good Kirk ploy. I mean, that seems like a Kirk ploy to me.
No, the Kirk felt like Kirk all episode. The acting had just enough. I liked that there were hints of the pauses, the Shatner delayed speaking.
But not as bad as actual Shatner.
Exactly.
Not
but
like
there were hints of it.
Not like you're doing a caricature of him, which is what a lot of people tend to do.
Right. No,
I know what you mean, yeah.
It was the Shatner performance toned down. It's like it's turned to -11. But there's just enough of it there to, this is Kirk as you think of Kirk and not a Chris Pine Kirk. Pike rolls with the bluff, and, the Praetor ends up sending out the probe ship.
The bird of prey.
Yeah, the bird of prey. After Pike reveals, they've got photographic evidence of them destroying the outpost.
Very Gorn-like, wasn't it? Like
a little bit.
Like calling, so we're going to kill you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I'm not sure I agree with. I feel like in this episode they felt like they had to have two imposing. Well, they had to have a Romulan imposing fleet, so they kind of shoehorned one in because that was, as I said, there were a couple of things about this episode that I thought were just not gelling right with me. And I mean, we're at the parts right now that were not gelling right with me. Like a lot of the earlier stuff and everything was doing pretty good, but like they just kind of shoehorned in this Romulan
Yes.
fleet, and I'm like,
I mean,
it obviously wasn't in Balance of Terror, but at the same time, it's like, and then this whole like, oh, we're destroying the ship that went over, so we're square. No, they're like, no, we still demand your surrender, and it's like, I get it that the Romulans are arrogant, but they're not stupid. Like,
yeah, and they acted stupid this episode. It was uncharacteristic because they're usually very calculating.
Well,
It's
I think
malicious type of logic.
I think, well, like when they saw the Enterprise on their own, they got a bit carried away, maybe.
I think though, here's what should have, like, in true Romulan character, this is what should have happened. After they realized that the Enterprise had photographic proof of that Romulan warbird,
They backpedal.
Yeah, they backpedal. They destroying the base. They blow up that ship. That's in character. But then they backpedal. But no, they go into this whole, well, we expect your surrender. And that's like, no, that's not how the Romulans would do it. They would backpedal, like, with the photographic evidence, they would backpedal. Or they would destroy the Enterprise. They wouldn't delay. Like, and the whole, and the Romulans had the Tal Shiar. The Romulans had been spying on the humans for a long time. They know what Federation ships look like. You know what I mean? Like they knew the Tal Shiar.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. By the way, I really was thinking that.
And maybe she was calling his bluff because she knew. They didn't state that they knew or didn't know. Kirk was just taking a gambit that they didn't know, and they probably did know that those weren't Federation starship Delta class starships. But at the same time, it was very uncharacteristic for the Romulans when they had photographic proof to not destroy that ship and backpedal. Why destroy the ship if you're not going to backpedal like that?
Also, when they destroyed one of their own ships, the captain of it, he gave the same speech as
I was about to get there. The Balance of Terror. No, it's all good. Yeah, we are of a kind.
Yeah, and that was great. Like I like the merging of all of that. I do apologize, guys, but it is getting late. I really want to wrap this up. It's almost 3 a.m, and I'm fucking dying here. In a war, the Romulans could sell the destruction of their own ship as the Enterprise, and start a war. Yeah, I mean they were itching to start a war. The Romulans. I mean, like too often, like the Federation are trying. They're getting all their shit fucked over with, and they're still not trying to start a war.
Yeah, but the Romulans always want to look like they're in the right, though. That's the thing. Romulans want to save face always.
They're like
that
the
is one
Russians.
characteristic of those that they always have.
Anyway, let's continue, please.
Yeah. No, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. There's only a couple of more scenes.
Yeah.
That we have the big space fight. The Enterprise gets hit pretty hard despite Kirk using the mining ships as a shield between the Romulan Armada and the Enterprise. Turns out one of the places that got hit hard was weapons control, and we get that great shot that you were talking about earlier, Zam, where he's walking to sick bay. And then we get this great performance from Jess Bush as Nurse Chapel, explaining, that the extent of Spock's injuries and the fact that he'll probably never recover. If he does, he won't be the same. He'll be a shell of a man. And we see it sink in for Pike that he's traded his fate onto Spock. And we cut to Pike having a drink in his quarters, and future him shows up, and he explicitly says it to himself. This is, guess that's what I've done, and he resolves to go back and not write the letter. Before he can.
Sorry, this is very similar as well to the final episode of Voyager, where future Janeway comes along. And basically make sure that they go.
No, she changed the timeline though. Like she.
No, I know, I agree, but it's about obviously doing what they believe was the right thing, because obviously going the way they did, Seven of Nine dies, Chakotay becomes a shell of a man.
Chakotay died.
Sorry, I apologize. Yeah, Chakotay died. Tuvok.
I mean, he became a shell of himself and then died. Like,
yeah. Tuvok obviously loses his mind, his marbles and stuff like that. So she made sure that wasn't going to happen by doing something different. And
right,
same with
I see your comparison there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
before he can touch the crystal and go back, Kirk comes back and Jim kind of hits him with a dose of hindsight. Pike, pours him a drink, asks him to sit down and tell him a bit about himself. We get kind of, those bits of, accurate continuity. He's from Iowa. His dad was on the Kelvin, and he touches the crystal and he's back. He's at the same spot, but he's back 7 years in the past holding the pad. He deletes the letter. And then we get like my favorite scene of the episode, the scene with him and Spock. And Pike says that he's got to accept his fate. So somebody important to him and important period doesn't end up with it. And Spock intuits that it's him that he's speaking about. We cut to the bridge and we think we're kind of getting this happy, bittersweet ending, but Uhura gets a call. It's the captain and Una are called to the transporter bay, and Una is arrested for lying to Starfleet and actually being a genetically enhanced individual in Alarian.
Which also kind of explains why she's not in the original series, but I don't know what they're going to do next season with that. Go ahead, Zeb.
I just want to add that this kid who Pike saves and obviously ends up creating an alternative timeline, which fucks everything up. It's a bit like Barry Allen and aka the Flash, and his mum. Like, yes, it's my mum, and I want her to live, but my mum living means that everything goes to shit.
Mm-hmm.
So she
Flashpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm waiting for the timey-wimey episode where everything, like, they go back and actually everything's better. Like, like every time they go back in time and change something, everything goes to shit. Everything is the worst timeline after you change something. And it's almost like, I wish one time they go back in time and they change it expecting it to be the worst. And it's actually not.
Well, a couple of films, I mean, not necessarily Star Trek, but seems like Back to the Future did that. Like because of what Marty McFly did in the past, his parents ended up, like his mum fell in love with his dad out of pity and never really loved him in the right way. But in a way, Marty McFly made his dad stand up for himself and grow a spine and made him just a bit more of a man, so to speak. And and his parents ended up properly falling in love, and he had more confidence and stuff like that. And that was a good show that you can go back in time and make things better. But usually in Star Trek, going back in time makes things worse.
Oh, yeah, it's almost always.
Almost always. I totally agree. So yeah, but ending with Una, like I don't know if this will be the end of Una. Like,
I don't think so either. But
no, I think this is gonna be like season 2 is gonna be the rescue Una or exonerate Una season. Season 1 was the Pike accepts his fate season.
Well, and as I said, I wonder if for the next season we're going to get a first officer Kirk, like on the Enterprise. Like, I wonder if that's where we're going with this.
I hope not.
I hope not too, but I can see them doing that.
I can see Spock being the first officer personally.
I hope that's what.
No, I want Spock to be the first officer. I'm just saying I can see where they're going with this. They're going to Discovery season 2 it and put the stand-in first officer in there.
Like, the generation of Una just seems like the right sort of play. I think that we're going to go down one of these sort of morality route episodes about, like they did with Data, saying that this person serves as well.
Measure of a man, yeah.
Yeah, and all of that sort of stuff, like don't judge them for being people who are genetically enhanced and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's going to go down that particular route, in my opinion, and the Starfleet are going to look within themselves and think to themselves, okay, yeah, we can't discriminate against Una regardless of, we have to look at our record and stuff like that.
Well, and also I think it's the fact that she hid the fact that she was enhanced. I know that they don't like enhanced individuals, but at the same time, I can't remember, were hers when she was born like young, when like Bashir, or were hers done before?
Well,
She was
but
born?
the whole
Before she
society,
is born.
that whole society, like, they do advanced stuff as well. But I do feel like the entire staff, Enterprise crew, will vouch for her, which will hopefully get her off the hook.
Yeah, I doubt it.
So-
Well, let me put it this way: they might, just because it's Rebecca Romaine is a big draw to the show, and but at the same time, I don't want her to go. But at the same time, we've had this story before with Bashir, and didn't we have it with somebody else on? I mean, who was it? In Next Gen, there was somebody I thought that it was a Vulcan officer that actually turned out to be Romulan, and they had to exonerate him because he lied and he said he was Vulcan, but he was actually Romulan. The science that
Okay.
side that so like
I
that's
can't
what I'm saying.
remember,
We've
but
had these
okay.
episodes before, and it's just like, I don't know, like
Oh.
in inside itself to
The
like,
part Romulan officer from Drumhead. That's what you're
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah. And I just, I don't know. I don't know where I stand with it. I mean, part of me is like, yeah, I mean, she should be at least kicked out of Starfleet, like, because that's the rules, and she hit it. The problem is that she hit it, and as I said, I don't think they would have let her in Starfleet anyway. But they're gonna hang her on the fact that she hit it, not the fact that
she ended up being an antagonist. Maybe in the future.
That'd be a
some
good
sort of Khan style antagonist.
Team up with Captain Angel.
Ooh, that would be
should-
that'd be a pretty wicked combination right there.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right, well, let's
Captain
mark it
Angel
so
come
Zam
back
can go to
next-
bed.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give this episode an 8 out of 10. Very, very good. Not perfect. Obviously, there's questions to be asked. And you see, when I mentioned what we saw in Orville, that hit me in the feels. This episode hit me in the nostalgia, but that's about it. Like, I never got the feels. I liked this episode. I thought that's pretty cool. But to get me emotional the way Orville did, it didn't. And that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the episode, but it's still only worthy of an 8, which is very, very good. An 8 is fucking a brilliant mark. So 8 out of 10.
I'll give it a 7. I was going between 7 and 8. It's still a good episode. There were just a bit too many things, like too many nitpicks, and then but it all kind of bundled into this big nitpick. So it's like, I would probably give it, like, if I did halves, I'd probably do 7.5, but I don't do halves, so I settled on 7.
Before we get to mages, let me quickly see what Danny Wanser says. So I think we read this one already. When they beam away with Una at the end, one of the security officers beam out looking directly up. The actor that has never seen Star Trek before, it looks so odd.
I did notice that.
And Jim Landscape, not everyone come on the boot now. And by the way, Jim, sorry we didn't have you on this show, but we will get you on the next Star Trek episode, whatever that may be, coming out in the future, if you want to join us for that. But thank you very much for joining us, mate. Mage, what was your mark?
I walked into this review intending to give this episode a 9, but after some of the things that the two of you have pointed out, that kind of, when you point them out, they kind of stick in my craw a bit too. I'm going to bump it down to an 8. I still think it was a really well-paced episode. It got me in the feels a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I missed it up in that last scene with Spock and Pike. I feel like their bond is tighter than ever, and I really enjoyed that. I feel like this episode did their relationship a good service. But no, a great episode of TV, but there were some problems with it. But a good capstone to the best first season of Trek.
Actually, Mage, I will say seeing Spock all fucked up the way he was, and knowing that they've gone through different timelines, and he always ends up getting fucked up, which is kind of ironic. But nevertheless, seeing him fucked up like that was a little bit emotional. But that was almost because it was like the makeup job they done on him was fantastic to make him look as damaged as he was, if you know what I mean. More to do with that.
I'm pretty sure his damage was on the opposite side of his face as Pike ends up.
Yeah,
I
we
think
saw like
they
a hole.
mirrored it.
Yeah, like we saw a hole in his, well, not a hole in his arm, but his arm was very damaged. He was bleeding out. He lost a leg and stuff like that. So, anyways, oh, by the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you before, but I've mentioned this to Cheetah. I have a problem with Spock having green blood because he was born from a human woman, so theoretically his blood should be red. No, am I the only one who thinks this?
What I mean, maybe, but what if the Vulcan gene is dominant that for the cardiovascular system, and that makes it, and because the reason why a Romulan and a Vulcan's blood is green is because we use iron to transfer oxygen throughout our body. Vulcans use copper in their bloodstream. So
Yeah, but he's mixed race. He's just as, even though he is a point, he's just as human as he is Vulcan.
So maybe he should have like Santa Clauses and reindeer moving, so green and red blood.
I don't know. I just always thought that was a bit weird. If his dad was a human and his mum was Vulcan, I had no problem with him having green blood. But I do think if you're coming from a red-blooded person, I just anyway. Nevertheless, that's a debate for another day, I guess. So, yeah. Anyways.
Okay.
So are we done here, boys?
Yep. I say maybe we should. Oh, I was gonna say maybe in the near future we can do a recap when it's not 3 a.m. for Zam.
Yeah. I'm done. But no problems at all. It's been great fun. Tomorrow is the final episode of season 3 of The Boys, episode 8. You're gonna be joining us for that, Mage?
Yes, sir. I'll see you then.
Well, probably about 8 o'clock-ish or something along those times. We'll see if I can get Ginger Greek on board as well. But yeah, we'll see us for that. Thank you very much as well, Danny Advance as well. Try and join us for The Boys. In my opinion, the best non-family show. I mean, that and The Orville are my 2 favorite shows right now. So yeah, you're about to watch The Boys right now. Oh, fair enough. I'm gonna watch it when I wake up this morning. All right then. So you want me to lead us out?
I mean, I can.
Yeah, please do. I'm fucking tired, man.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. This has been our review of the Orville episode 6 and Star Trek Strange New Worlds, the season finale. If you liked, please leave a comment down below on your favorite moments of these episodes. And also leave us a like because, well, we like you, so you can like us, please. With that all being said, please consider subscribing to NerdTube. We are the greatest YouTube channel you kind of maybe sort of heard of. We will catch you guys in the next one. Catch you on later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. May the force be with you.